Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 116. I'm your host, Perrysburg resident Kim Newlove. The Perrysburg Podcast is a resource for Perrysburg residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. Today, we are talking about the next election, which will be on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. As we get started, I have a disclosure to make. I am just an average Perrysburg resident and I am a registered voter, but I'm not an expert on voter resources. So, what I'm going to share today are 5 voter resources for the average Perrysburg resident. You don't have to be nerdy and super into politics to benefit from this episode. So, if you're both a Perrysburg resident and a registered voter like me, I'd like to share these 5 voter resources with you. Whenever there's an election, let me tell you what I do. I like to learn about the candidates and the issues. I am a nerd and I love to make a good list, so I make a list of who and what I plan to vote for, and then I vote with confidence on election day. I march right up to the machine and I vote. I'm there for probably 5 minutes or less. 5 minutes or less. I am not a fan of waiting until I'm in front of the machine to start figuring out who I'm going to vote for. So, how do you become an informed voter in Perrysburg? Great question. Try these 5 resources. The first 2 are my go to. Number 1, the Nonpartisan Voter Guide that is sponsored by the Perrysburg Area League of Women Voters. My copy was delivered right along with my copy of the Perrysburg Messenger Journal newspaper last week. I think it was on October 2nd, on or around October 2nd. The voter guide is about the same size as the newspaper. Now, in this voter guide, you'll find a ton of information, great election information. There's a QR code, for example, for the Wood County Board of Elections, just in case you need to register to vote. And by the way, the last day that you could register to vote for this election, November 4th, was on October 6th. So at this time, you can no longer register to vote for this election. But you can register to vote now if you are not already registered, and then you can vote in the next election. They also have candidate bios, printed Q&A sessions with the candidates, links to candidate websites and social media profiles, ballot issues. There's also a QR code for the YouTube video from the candidate forum that was at Way Public Library. I think that was on September 28th. But, anyways, the YouTube video is available now. And if you didn't get a copy of the voter guide, go ahead and stop over at the Way Public Library's information desk for your copy while supplies last. Again, the League of Women Voters voter guide is an excellent resource. By far, this is my number 1 voter resource. Number 2 on my list is vote411.org. You type in your address into the form on the website, and then they'll show you what's on your ballot, where your polling place is, and more. You can click around and see what it has to offer. My third resource is the candidate forum video that I talked about just a minute ago. Yes, there's a QR code for it on the voter guide that the League of Women Voters of the Perrysburg area puts out, but watching the video is a voter resource. The video was recorded at Way Public Library, but it was led by the League of Women Voters of the Perrysburg area. They did a great job. I found it by scanning the QR code on my voter guide, but there's also a link to it on the Perrysburg Area League of Women Voters website. I've got a link to that website in the show notes on perrysburgpodcast.com. The video features candidates for Perrysburg City Council, the Township Trustees, and the school board. It is a long video, but if you play it at 2 times speed, you'll get it done in half the time, right? My fourth voter resource is episode 65 of the Perrysburg podcast. That featured Deborah Greenlee Gorman. She was at the time the president of the Perrysburg Area League of Women Voters. Not sure if she's still the president, but she was at the time. She did a fantastic job. She explained what the League of Women Voters is, and she talked about voter resources for Perrysburg residents. That is an excellent, excellent resource. And my fifth and final voter resource comes out next week. Here's a little sneak preview. It is episode 117 of the Perrysburg podcast. All four city council candidates, City of Perrysburg council candidates, will be featured in episode 117 of the Perrysburg podcast. I have completed two of my four interviews, and each candidate interview is about 15 minutes long. Each candidate will tell you what brought them to Perrysburg, why they like living here, why they're running for council, and more. There's about 5 or 6 questions for each candidate. You can listen to that interview next week on October 17th, 2025. And that ends my list of 5 voter resources that I recommend. In review, the voter guide and vote411.org are my go to resources for election information. The video was also great. That was the third one. The fourth one was my interview with Deborah Greenlee Gorman, and the fifth one comes out next week. All of those are great resources. If you want something super comprehensive, go to the voter guide. It's the best. I don't know about you, but I'm working on my list for election day, and I'm planning to get her done quickly and with confidence on November 4th. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for listening to episode 116 of the Perrysburg Podcast. Please visit perrysburgpodcast.com to read the show notes. In the show notes, you will find my list of 5 voter resources, a link to my podcast interview with Deborah Greenlee Gorman, and more. Everything you need is in the show notes for episode 116 on perrysburgpodcast.com. If you would like to be notified by email each time a new episode of the Perrysburg Podcast comes out, sign up for the newsletter on perrysburgpodcast.com. You can also subscribe to or follow this show on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thank you very much for listening today. Get out there and vote on November 4th, and I'll talk to you next week.